Tonight, 2 Australian jihadists accused of keeping Yazidi women as slaves in northern Iraq. Indonesia's president rejects a bid for clemency from Bali 9 member Andrew Chan. Senior government figures hit back at reports of growing internal unease about the Prime Minister's performance.
People are committed to the course the government has set.
Coming up on the drum, why don't you give us a twirl? How one male commentator caused a racket at the Australian Open.
Good evening, Rachel Pupazzoni with ABC News. 2 Australian jihadists have been accused of keeping slaves. They've been identified by 4 women from the Yazidi minority in northern Iraq. The women say Khalid Sharif and Mohammed Elamar kept them at a building in the Syrian city of Raqqa for 2 months late last year. Middle East correspondent Matt Brown reports from northern Iraq.
Their ordeal began in the midst of this humanitarian crisis last year. 4 Yazidi women have told the ABC they were kidnapped along with thousands of others. After Islamic State fighters overran their homes in northern Iraq, they say they were taken into Syria and held captive by Australians.
He told me himself he's an Australian. He said, forget about your house and your gods. You're in a better place with a better religion.
Each woman identified this man, Khalid Sharif, as their captor. He's a convicted terrorist, a jihadist now accused of slavery.
We were so afraid they would force us to marry them. And when they were going to battle, they'd take knives and other tools to cut off the heads of those they fight.
Sharif provoked outrage last year when he posted this image online showing his son holding a severed head. The ABC has obtained new images of Sharif and his family, and the Yazidi women he enslaved say the children are being badly influenced by his example.
Even their children were carrying knives and threatening to kill us.
2 of the women also identified Mohammed Elamar as one of their captors. He's Sharif's friend with his own long history of extremism.
The other one had no family. He forced one of my friends to marry him.
This is the first direct evidence that Sharif and Elamar are in the Islamic State's de facto capital, Raqqa, which is a crime under Australian law. While some Yazidi women have managed to find refuge in camps like this one, activists say 3,500, 5,000, even more Yazidis are still missing. And for them, the horrible ordeal is still going on. Matt Brown, ABC News, Northern Iraq.
The heart of Sydney had a security scare this afternoon when suspicious packages were found on a ferry at Circular Quay. The area was locked down until the police bomb squad declared the packages were safe. It was later revealed the packages were training equipment meant to be used in a security exercise.
False alarm or not, these were unnerving scenes for Sydney.
Scary, really, really scary. Yeah, like people are panicking and yeah, it's terrible. It really is.
At 1:30 this afternoon, a crew member reported suspicious packages on board the Balmain ferry as it approached Circular Quay. Police cleared the vessel and sent in the bomb squad. The famous precinct was shut down.
Police is coming like this and say, get out, get out, get out. Others straight away I told the customer there, go out because something wrong.
I'm never going again. If I have to, I'll save up and I'll buy a boat. I am never going on a ferry again.
All ferries in and out of the quay were stopped. Trains and buses were diverted from the area.
Eastern Suburb Services, please go to Martin Place. Elizabeth Street, thank you.
But within an hour and a half, police declared the packages weren't a threat. The ABC can reveal the packages were in fact training equipment for a security exercise. Bottles filled with liquid and nails with wires attached, left in the ferry's wheelhouse. A source says it was not police equipment.
Was it made to look suspicious?
In relation to the package, I can't answer any questions in relation to that because it forms part of our investigation, as you can appreciate.
Ferries and other transport quickly resumed. Police say their response was appropriate and the public should always report anything suspicious. Ben Worsley, ABC News, Sydney.
Australian Bali 9 drug trafficker Andrew Chan has had his plea for presidential clemency officially rejected. Chan was sentenced to death for trafficking heroin in 2004. With the latest details, here's Indonesia correspondent George Roberts.
The letter advising that Andrew Chan's presidential clemency bid had been rejected arrived at Denpasar District Court at about 1:20 local time this afternoon. That effectively means that he has exhausted his avenues of legal and presidential appeal. However, as a last-ditch effort, his lawyers are attempting to have a judicial review of the entire process through the whole legal system and even the clemency bid itself. In order to have that judicial review triggered or started, there needs to be some new evidence or new supporting material in order to have that happen. But as far as the system in Indonesia goes, this now means that Andrew Chan is at effectively the last point in the process of attempting to save himself from death row or from execution. Now, the Attorney General has already indicated that once Andrew Chan's clemency bid was rejected, that would pave the way for both him and Myuran Sukumaran to both be executed. The last lot of executions happened last Sunday. 6 people were put to death in the early hours of Sunday morning after having had their last avenue of appeal, the presidential pardon, rejected just weeks beforehand. So potentially for Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran, they could be facing the firing squad within weeks.
The Prime Minister has mounted a strong defence of his leadership in the face of growing criticism from his party room. Tony Abbott's vowing to remain in the top job, blaming the government's problems on the Senate and warning his colleagues that changing leaders would destroy the coalition. Here's political editor Chris Uhlmann.
Good beginnings.
Morning, Prime Minister. I'm a Liberal voter through and through. And
Thank you, Andrew.
And I'll always vote Liberal. But
don't always make for happy endings.
People simply don't like you. And as a Liberal voter, I don't particularly like you.
Tony Abbott met complaints about his leadership head-on Melbourne radio this morning and launched a vigorous defence of his government.
You're in a bit of strife, aren't you?
Look, Neil, judge us on our record. We said we'd get rid of the carbon tax. We did. We said we'd stop the boats. We have. We said we'd build roads.
But the Prime Minister is starting the year dogged by growing party room gripes about his style, and he had a message for the troops. Disunity is political death.
If there is one lesson to be learnt from the fate of the former government in Canberra, maybe even from the fate of the former government in Victoria, is you do not change leaders.
The Prime Minister says no one has raised his performance with him, but at least one MP has put his complaint in writing. The ABC has spoken to a score of others. Most say the government has to rapidly improve. Others say that the leadership is chaotic and dysfunctional, and some want a change at the top. So the leadership challenge scripts have been swapped.
The Liberal Abbott government cannot govern themselves, so how can we expect them to govern the nation?
It's amazing how the lowliest backbencher all of a sudden becomes a senior Liberal in stories such as this.
The government is pressing on with its plan to have an upfront payment for GP visits and is trying to fashion a compromise with doctors.
I know that you will join me in wanting to protect Medicare.
The higher education plan is also being retooled. Most universities support deregulation but fear the chance for change might soon be lost.
The political reality is if this legislation fails again, then it's off the table for a long period of time.
And if it fails again, the pressure will mount on the leader. Chris Uhlmann, ABC News, Canberra.
The minimum wage and penalty rates are being examined in a review ordered by the federal government. The Productivity Commission's issues paper was released online today, even though it was supposed to remain under wraps until tomorrow. It raises questions about the minimum wage, whether it's effective and how it's calculated. Penalty rates, enterprise bargaining, productivity and workers' rights are also covered. The final report, due in November, is expected to form the basis of a new workplace relations policy for the coalition. A 5-year-old boy has been orphaned after his parents were murdered on the Gold Coast. 43-year-old Corey Croft and 39-year-old Renee Carter were fatally stabbed inside their Upper Coomera home. Police today charged Ms Carter's ex-husband with 2 counts of murder.
Police believe the 5-year-old was asleep when his parents were stabbed inside their Skylark Street home around 8 o'clock on Tuesday night. A concerned auntie went to the rental property late yesterday and discovered the bodies and the boy.
Obviously it's an extremely traumatic experience for a 5-year-old, but you know, we can only hope at the end of the day that the fact that he is young in years you know, might reduce the impact on him.
Neighbours were initially confused about what had happened.
We thought it was one of the kids had been hit by a car because the kids were always playing on the road.
But news of the double murder quickly spread.
This is a quiet neighbourhood, you know, it's a peaceful neighbourhood.
It's very distressing for us because it's so close and this is a very, very quiet community. Nothing happens here.
A knife was found inside the home and early this morning police arrested Renee Carter's ex-husband and charged him with the murders. Christopher Robert Carter appeared in the Southport Magistrates Court today. The 36-year-old's court appearance was brief. Dressed in a singlet and shorts, the defendant stood before the magistrate, where he was remanded in custody until the 27th of March. His supporters were reluctant to comment outside court.
How do you think you'll be holding up in there?
While Carter was facing court, a second crime scene was established at Upper Coomera, where witnesses say bloodied clothes were found.
Some items have been located, but I can't say confidently at this stage that they are of interest in the investigation.
Police want to speak with anyone who saw Christopher Carter's four-wheel drive at the Upper Coomera home in the past week. Family members are now caring for the boy. Tom Forbes, ABC News, Gold Coast.
Police investigating the disappearance of 3-year-old William Tyrrell on New South Wales, mid-north coast, have wrapped up their search of a tradesman's property. Those close to white goods repairman Bill Spedding have expressed their concern for him and his family, and police haven't shed any more light on the course of their investigation.
The police tape around Bill Spedding's rented property at Bonny Hills came down this morning, but officers were keeping tight-lipped about what happens next.
Have you got any new leads?
Sorry, I can't discuss it any further at this stage.
Bill Spedding's Facebook page reveals he commented on William Tyrrell's disappearance, including this post back in December. Mr Spedding and his wife are regulars at Alison Saunders' chicken shop in nearby Laurelton.
I was shocked when I came in and people had told me that the police had been down and raided his office and that they were out at the house. I was really shocked. I can't believe it.
Friends of the Speddings who wouldn't speak on camera say they're distressed at the events of the past few days. Alison Saunders says the Speddings are lovely people who would be devastated by what's unfolded.
If it comes to the point where they find nothing, then where does it leave them guys?
Down the road is Bill Spedding's pawn shop, which was also searched. It's believed to have been trading for less than a year. The ABC has made contact with Mr Spedding. He told us he would be making no comment, nor would he be doing any interviews. And in the small town of Kendall, where William Tyrrell went missing while visiting his grandmother's home 4 months ago, people are wondering what to make of it all.
I feel certain the police will find out. Give them time.
William Tyrrell's grandmother also isn't commenting on the developments, but a friend told us that the publicity of the case and the speculation around it has been distressing. Police have reiterated that this is just one of a number of lines of inquiries, so the search for answers continues. Carl Herr, ABC News on the New South Wales Mid-North Coast.
Former New South Wales detectives Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara have been committed to stand trial over the murder of a Sydney student. The body of Jamie Gow was found floating in the water off Cronulla Beach in May last year. Both men are accused of murdering the 20-year-old in what's been described as a drug deal that went sour. They appeared in court this morning, where lawyers waived their right to a committal hearing.
He just wants to get to trial as soon as possible. I think it's in the interest of justice that we do things as quickly as we can. I think you'll find in many respects there mightn't be too much dispute in relation to the police case, so we're anxious to get to trial as soon as possible.
Rogerson and McNamara will stand trial in the Supreme Court from the 6th of March. They were formally refused bail. Ukrainian authorities say at least 6 people have been killed by shelling at a bus stop in the rebel-held eastern city of Donetsk. The victims reportedly include bus passengers and someone who was travelling in a nearby car. Last week, 13 people were killed when a bus was struck by rocket fire in Buhas, southwest of Donetsk. More than 4,800 people have been killed and some 1.2 million people displaced since pro-Russian rebels seized parts of Luhansk and Donetsk regions in April. The European Union is approaching a critical point in its history. In a few hours, its central bank will announce a massive stimulus program to ward off deflation. At the same time, interest rates are falling around the world, and Westpac says Australia is next. Here's finance correspondent Philip Lasker.
The European Central Bank will be doing much more of this in coming months, printing money to solve a deepening problem.
The economy is still very weak, growth is very weak, and if you can introduce this policy, then we might see some boost to confidence like we've seen in the US.
The ECB is expected to print between 500 million and 1.1 trillion euros, on par with the US and UK stimulus measures, but well below what Japan is doing. It's aimed at creating inflation in what's becoming a low-inflation world where there's an oversupply of commodities. Commodity exporters like Canada were forced to cut interest rates to support the economy, which also saw the Australian dollar fall.
People translated that to economies like New Zealand and Australia, which are also big commodity exporting economies.
Westpac thinks Australia's Reserve Bank will follow Canada as soon as next month, but not many people agree.
The RBA isn't looking at a labour market nor an economy which feels like it's slipping in a seriously negative way.
But bond rates have tumbled to record lows around the world, reflecting lower interest rate expectations. It means Australian banks are getting cheaper money, even without a Reserve Bank cut, but they're not passing much of it on.
People with existing home loans are not seeing any benefit of lower funding costs flowing through to them, and of course depositors are being squeezed dramatically.
It's banks protecting their bottom lines in the face of tougher capital requirements. Philip Lasker, ABC News.
An Aboriginal group has been granted native title over a large section of South Australia's Eyre Peninsula, covering more than a dozen local council areas. Some believe the ruling could have ramifications for future claims in more populated areas.
After years of fighting, a historic day for the Bangala people.
It's been a long, hard battle for us to prove that we're the people where we said we're from within the Eyre Peninsula region.
Elders travelled from Whyalla and Port Augusta for the judgment. Linda Dare's mother helped start the claim nearly 19 years ago, but has since died.
I would have loved for my mum to be here today to jump around like the rest of us, but yeah.
The claim covers a 44,500 square kilometre area of land and sea, spanning from Lake Torrens in the north to Port Lincoln. Justice John Mansfield found the claimants do hold native title rights.
We want to work with everybody, work with the past, with the development, local government, and have positive outcomes, what we want to do in the future.
But his ruling excluded some areas, including the Upper Spencer Gulf Islands and the seas south of Port Lincoln. It means the region's tuna farms won't be affected.
It's the second native title ruling by judgment in South Australia, and the Bangala claimant's lawyer believes it could set a precedent for future claims in settled areas.
Perhaps has an extension into other states as well, into settled areas where it has been thought claims could not be successful, and I think we've set a new benchmark in that regard.
For many Bangala people, the ruling is about protecting their culture into the future.
There's a lot of stories there and we need to keep it going, hand it on, and so it'll keep going on.
It's for our kids, our grandkids and, generations to come.
A future now defined after 2 decades of fighting. Nicola Gage, ABC News, Adelaide.
Fishermen in the Northern Territory are being warned to take care when casting lines at roadside culverts because of the risk posed by crocodiles. Rangers in Kakadu National Park shot and removed a 4-metre croc yesterday after it lunged at 2 people on the Arnhem Highway. Culvert fishing is popular during the wet season, but the Amateur Fishermen's Association says anglers need to take care.
There are some particular risks when you're land-based fishing, and particularly this time of year when the crocodiles spread out, you know, when the floodplains are inundated. Crocs are pretty aggressive this time of year.
4 people were killed by crocodiles in top-end waters last year. As children head back to school this week, parents are being warned of a sharp increase in whooping cough across several states. Health authorities say older children are easily infected and can spread the bacteria while showing few symptoms.
When Emma Payton's daughter Ellen developed a dry cough late last year, she wasn't too concerned.
We thought it was asthma, so it didn't sound like the traditional whooping cough with a hoop, and she hadn't had any other symptoms that are typical with whooping cough, like a fever or a runny nose.
Tests revealed that both Ellen and her younger brother Nick had the highly contagious disease. Both were kept away from school and given antibiotics, even though they had few symptoms.
I felt fine, but I had it, so it was sort of like a holiday.
Health experts say primary school children are particularly susceptible to whooping cough, even if they're fully vaccinated.
That's because the children have had a booster when they're 4 years of age, and the next booster is due at 12. We offer that to all children in Year 7.
What this can mean is that children can be contagious but unaware.
The problem for that is that the adults and the older children have this cough going on for many days and weeks, and they can transmit it to the young infants.
While children and adults may only develop a cough, on average 1 in every 100 babies who contract whooping cough die.
It's well known every 3 to 4 years we get a bit of an epidemic, a very bad epidemic, 3 or 4 years ago. Hopefully this is not going to become another big epidemic, so we're watching the cases.
During the last major outbreak of whooping cough in 2011, there was close to 1,500 cases of the disease reported each month in New South Wales. In April last year, just 118 cases were reported, but by December, that number had quadrupled to 484. In Victoria and the ACT, reported cases also doubled between April and December. Health guidelines recommend that parents, grandparents and carers of newborn babies be vaccinated. However, experts say the whole community should be aware of the symptoms of whooping cough and how to stay safe.
It's about getting cases diagnosed, so that's work we do with general practitioners and hospitals to identify cases. Preventing is keeping small babies away from people who have a coughing illness, and protection is about vaccination.
The Taylor family says they're proof of how seemingly healthy people can carry and spread the deadly disease. Lucy Carter, ABC News, Sydney.
Casey Dell'Acqua's Australian Open campaign is over after she lost in 3 sets to American teenager Madison Keys. Ayla Tomljanovic also exited the tournament in the second round. But on a warm day in Melbourne, top seeds Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams both progressed with ease into the final 32.
Casey Dell'Acqua didn't bring brilliant form into this year's Australian Open, but she looked on top of her game in a dominant opening set today.
Well, she's really enjoying herself out here now.
Unfortunately for home fans, she wasn't for long. She won just 2 more games as Madison Keys claimed the second set and then the match to send Dell'Acqua packing.
And the young American moves once again into the third round.
Ayla Tomljanovic couldn't keep her Open hopes alive in a straight sets loss. Serena Williams struggled through her opening set against Vera Zvonareva, but a more than comfortable second set secured her spot in the final 32.
Well, that's just outstanding defence.
Men's top seed Novak Djokovic got out of the Melbourne heat quickly in a straight sets win over Andrei Kuznetsov.
Yeah, pretty stress-free, 27 bars, 28 now here in Melbourne.
Last night, Sam Groth and Thanasi Kokkinakis didn't need any help getting the crowd behind them. The two Australians split the first 4 sets before Groth took control in the decider.
And he's done it. Groth is through.
Groth will take part in another All-Australian affair on Friday against a rejuvenated Bernard Tomic.
Tomic's resurgent summer continues here.
Tomic's relief was clear after defeating an inventive Philip Kohlschreiber.
We were playing both pretty well. He was coming up with shots I've never seen before.
Nick Kyrgios claimed a 4-set win to make the third round at Melbourne Park for the first time, while third seed Rafael Nadal overcame dizziness and nausea to win a 5-set contest over little-known American Tim Smyczek. Ben Lisson, ABC News, Melbourne.
South Australian Rowan Dennis has taken the overall lead in the Tour Down Under after beating home teammate Cadel Evans to win Stage 3 in the Adelaide Hills. Australians Will Clark and Calvin Watson were part of a four-man breakaway, with Clark taking out each of the 3 intermediate sprints. The peloton gathered up the group before the final climb as race favourites Richie Port and Evans hit the front inside the final kilometre. But Dennis took the leaders by surprise and surged to the biggest win of his career to take the ochre jersey.
He opens up an incredible gap as he races to the line. Evans is trying to make this a BMC 1-2 as Dennis hits the line.
The 25-year-old holds a 7-second lead over Evans heading into Stage 4. Shane Watson will miss tomorrow's one-day cricket match against England in Hobart. The all-rounder suffered hamstring tightness while bowling at training this morning.
Selectors decided it wasn't worth risking Shane Watson ahead of the World Cup.
I don't think it's anything too major. I think it's more of a precautionary measure to make sure he's right for the World Cup.
Sean Marsh will join Aaron Finch as an opening batsman. Cameron White is set to play his first one-day international in almost 4 years. Spinner Xavier Doherty is in line for a recall in front of his home crowd, and that could help speed up the over rate.
You know, Buff gave us a pretty big rocket after last game, and that's something that we're going to have to improve on.
England is talking up its chances after a dominant win against India.
Yeah, I don't really know why we put it all together then, but it's a good sign. If we start doing that more consistently, then, like I said, we're a dangerous side.
It was pretty much a full package victory for them. So, look, they're a quality side with some very dangerous players.
It'll be the first international match in front of Bellerive Oval's new grandstand, named but not yet signed the Ricky Ponting stand. Tom Nightingale, ABC News.
Racehorse trainer Peter Moody is embroiled in another doping controversy, this time in New South Wales. It's emerged that the Moody-trained filly House of Hingis tested positive for ibuprofen last November. Racing New South Wales has scheduled a hearing next Monday to investigate the results. Last week, Racing Victoria named Moody as one of 3 trainers with horses which had elevated cobalt levels.
We've still got plenty of thunderstorms and the potential of some quite heavy rainfall through eastern districts of Queensland, particularly around the central and the southeastern corner. We still have a severe weather warning for the potential of heavy rainfall and damaging winds for these areas, and a flood watch still in place through parts of the coastal rivers. Now, this system is actually expected to start weakening as we move into Friday, and by Saturday it should move out off the coast. And even though we're still looking at the potential of some showers and thunderstorms in its wake, we're not expecting to see the heavy falls. In fact, even over the next 24 to 48 hours, those heavier totals should also start to become a little bit more isolated across the region. Now, we've also got a cold front that's moving up in towards the southeast. Now, this first one's relatively weak. There's another one set to follow through on Saturday, but then yet another one in behind that, and that one will introduce much cooler conditions into the southeastern centres. We'll even see some of that cooler air moving up into New South Wales as we move through the new week. As far as rainfall goes with it, though, it'll be fairly light and patchy tomorrow through the southeastern centres. Similar story for New South Wales about the southern half. There is the potential of an isolated shower or thunderstorm, but not all areas will see those. Through the northeastern districts of New South Wales, up in towards the central and the southeast corner of Queensland and nearby inland, we are looking at the potential of fairly widespread showers and thunderstorms and those possible localised heavy falls. Also up across much of the far northern tropics of Queensland and the Northern Territory, and just the far western part of the Kimberley region. Now, we've still also got that very hot air sitting through Western Australia. That starts to move a little bit further into the Northern Territory as we move into the weekend. And we're expecting to see that heat then begin to dissipate by around about Monday and Tuesday. So there is some relief on the way. Now, through the southeastern centres tomorrow, quite warm. We've got that weakening front moving through at the moment, but that dissipates fairly quickly, so it's not going to clear away those warm, humid conditions. You're going to have to wait until Saturday for that. Potential of an isolated shower for Sydney and Canberra, more likely though for Brisbane and Darwin.
That is ABC News for now. I'm Rachel Pupazzoni. The Drum is next. Thanks for watching.